Now, one person we did hear from today for the first time, Karen Reed herself, doubling down, of course, saying she did not do this. She wants to know who did.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
Let's go.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, here we go. How is everybody doing? Hey, Taterbug. Hey, my King of Kings. Hey, even the kitty says hello. Did you guys hear that? Macy, Kimmy K, Lisa, nice to see everybody. Jennifer. There was an organization called the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, and it was created by the Frieds, Jennifer Fried's parents. Now, Jennifer Fried is now a very esteemed, am I right? Is she a psychologist or a psychiatrist? She runs in that she runs in that field. And she accused her father. She's a psychologist. Okay. Sometimes you get confused between psychologists and psychiatrists. But she's the one who created the acronym and the idea of DARVO, Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim, Offender. Jennifer, as an adult, accused her father of SA, and her parents had what would be a normal reaction to this, which was to create an organization and make her accusation a syndrome, so that this was a syndrome of false memory, something that they created. And lo and behold, many other accused child essayists gathered from all over the country. And it's really, if you didn't live through it, it's really hard to imagine in today's society, because now Me Too victims are really believed. Pretty much our entire media tends to be leans, let's say, behind victims of SA, especially child victims. But in the late 80s and 90s, this foundation was really taking off. And I consider it basically a branch of innocence fraud. So what does this have to do with today's subject of Karen Reed? I will make it there. Just hang with me, guys. So eventually, we'd hear about all these daycares, and especially McMartin's is one. that the children were fed information and falsely accused people, and it came from their imagination, and their testimony was all, there was nothing real about any of these and case after case, daycare cases of children and parents, everything was just either an implanted memory by the psychologist. So it was really a movement to blame psychologists. So when children would come out with this accusation, they would often be taken to a psychologist, and the accused, meaning the accused parents' reaction was like, this was implanted by the psychologist. The last vestiges, sort of the last bit of this movement, was really capturing the Friedmans, if anybody's seen that documentary, which wholly misrepresents the case against Arnold and Jesse Friedman, even leaving out another defendant that also pled guilty. So there was 3 defendants in that case who pled guilty. So as the organization, it grew, and Elizabeth Loftus, memory expert, her ideas were really attached to this. Talked about Elizabeth Loftus. She's basically a hired gun for the defense. As 2020 rolled around, the organization could no longer, from being very big and really producing books, they put their money behind getting writers to write books about this kind of idea, to having almost no money. They eventually had to close in 2020. So it's really an old idea, but it's being given new life by Karen Read's defense. And they are accusing John O'Keefe's nephew, Patrick, a child witness in this case, a witness that if you were lucky enough to hear his testimony, that was leaked. We couldn't see, but if one YouTuber put it up for a little bit on their channel, his testimony, you could hear bits of his testimony. And we had to rely on those and the small bit of journalists who were in the courtroom to tell us about his testimony. So he testified to the grand jury. The defense is alleging that Karen Read would get mad at him for little things, like one time he was eating steak tips and he was chewing too slowly, and she thought that he didn't appreciate it, and she got mad. When he testified in the Commonwealth's case, strangely, guys, his story had been changed to takeout. Like you couldn't take out steak tips. like no one serves steak tips. Or this could have happened twice, or because Karen Read has a video of this incident, and where he's happily chewing along, and strangely she's videoing it. It's about a 17-second video. Aiden Turtle Boy Carney played it on his show the night before last, or last night, I can't remember which, and we're going to take a look at it. So they're essentially saying that he's been forced to change his story, or he's been coached into this story. And because now Karen has the evidence, that we have to know that this is absolutely the time that Patrick is talking about. What this really means is that they know that Alan Jackson can make any adult witness's head spin and cross with his manipulative and aggressive tactics. Now they're going to go after the child witness, which makes me think that Patrick and Kaylee were very strong witnesses. But this is, again, another attack on the O'Keefe family. And I spoke last night about the O'Keefe family speaking out, how important I feel, and I've been saying this on my channel repeatedly, how important I feel that they speak out as a family, that it is so powerful. And they don't have to talk about the facts of the case. Just talk about how it affects them. They don't want to, say, get accused of prejudicing the jury. But I feel it's very important when you have a powerful, well-moneyed innocence fraud campaign like this, the most powerful weapon against fraud like this is the victims' families, because victims' voices are so powerful. And when you have them all there, speaking as a whole, it is so powerful. And yesterday I showed the Howe families interview. So let's take a look at what Aiden did with this yesterday. He played the audio. You can listen to it. So I just snipped a little bit of it. Let's take a listen.
I mean, it is very pro-prosecution, everything in this state.
So he's saying that everything in the state is so pro-prosecution. Massachusetts, the bluest state in our country. There is no... I thought this was hilarious. Everything's so pro-prosecution. Because anything but give the defense everything that they want is very anti-defense. That Judge Cannoni has ruled a few times for the Commonwealth. That means that they're very anti-defense. I haven't seen anything like that. That's not my impression of the cases I've followed in Massachusetts at all. But, of course, Aiden.
2024, when PF, which is, like they put the kid's name is Patrick. Okay. So Patrick testified for the prosecution. He was 11 years old at the time of Mr. O'Keefe's death and 13 years old when he testified. Now, again,
I love how they say death. Like, oh, really? What did he die of? Oh, getting clipped by Karen Reed's rather large SUV. Could that be possible? Oh, Karen Reed, no, not possible. He just had pieces of my plastic taillight in his shirt. My taillight was smashed to smithereens. Now she wants her own expert to prove that her car could do that kind of damage to John O'Keefe's car. Again, insisting that the O'Keefes hand over John O'Keefe's car and what I've heard is also for DNA. How are they going to find DNA?
I was inside the courtroom for this testimony, and it pissed me off so much because, all the Aaron O'Keefe's.
So this is where Aiden Turtle Boy Carney abuses the O'Keefe family again, once more, because it's not enough to just be pro Karen Reed, because that doesn't please Karen Reed enough. You have to go after the O'Keefe family and all the witnesses, which is exactly what an innocent person would be doing, right? Going after the victim's family, going after the witnesses in the case, randomly accusing them of being a killer, and then saying, "Oh, we don't know anything. What are we, detectives?" Because that's the best way after being quote unquote falsely accused of a crime. What you want to do next is run around accusing all these other people of being the real killers, going from person to person until you finally raise up your hands and say, "I don't know." Doesn't that sound likely? Hypocrites.
Family and Paul O'Keefe's family, they're there, and they're making sure that, telling the court, make sure that nobody's on the computers. We weren't allowed to be on our computers.
So how dare the O'Keefe family protect a minor witness in this case? It's already being traumatized. It's already been traumatized by losing his mother, his father, now his uncle. And his uncle in the most traumatic, heinous way possible, this kind of crime. And have the woman who helped raise you for 2 years be accused of it. You don't think that's a little traumatic to go through? And then having to testify multiple times. And then possibly just possibly being thrown out to the free Karen readers to be accused of being a liar and a stooge of the Commonwealth and used, and you don't know what you're really saying, that other people have put words in your mouth that you don't really mean it. Because, children are so impressionable. They'll do whatever you say. They'll say things, whatever you tell them to say, they'll say. Try that in real life. This is so much like a false memory syndrome foundation line of defense. I couldn't believe it. I won't be surprised if they bring up Elizabeth Loftus, who's testified for Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Ted Bundy. She didn't testify, but she also worked on the OJ case, consulted on that. But generally, anyone who's accused, Jerry Sandusky, she's pen pals with. And I saw her testify in person in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. She testified she was one of 2 defense witnesses for Ghislaine Maxwell. Why don't they bring in Elizabeth Loftus? Talk about how Patrick's memories are false.
Computers, nobody could take a picture of them. No one could do this. They're acting like they give a fuck about these kids. And they're
Right. The O'Keeffes don't care, right? They don't care. This boils my blood. Boils my blood. Actually, I really don't think I can stomach it. I think I'm going to try to move through it. Anyway, the cameras had to be turned off. Let's just skip through this part. There's only so much I can handle, guys.
They've influenced this kid's brain, this poor kid. During a SANE interview on February 22nd, 2022, so this is more than 3 weeks from when John O'Keefe died, 3 weeks after.
So I looked up SANE, and that was an SA child victims nurse. Is there another SANE that deals with children, that's completed some kind of psychiatric nurse, deals with children?
Karen Reed is charged. Okay. Patrick testified about an incident with the defendant wherein she, quote, got really mad at him. So this is not during the trial. This is during an interview.
Right. This is during the interview. He said, got really mad, and because she thought I didn't like them, and I was spoiled and stuff. I can actually bring up some of the document. I have some of the document here myself. During the trial testimony, he was supposedly questioned by the prosecution about the same incident. Prior to the testimony, Attorney Yannetti expressed his concerns about the line of questioning at sidebar. There was testimony in the grand jury about my client supposedly getting mad at Patrick for eating his steak too slowly. We provided a video. So now he's changed his story. They are asserting with no proof that he's changed his story because the Commonwealth have fed him a story. Do you know that kids eat the same food all the time? How many times did you order a dish, ask your parents to make you a certain dish? Do you think that this kid only had steak tips one time in his entire childhood? But we're supposed to think this video is the incident he's talking about? That Karen Reed, in the middle of being angry, would want to whip out her phone and start taping him? That's what we're supposed to gather? So so you get the idea. Let me just go to the actual testimony. So they're just accusing him of being a liar and having the Commonwealth feed it to him. So here's the actual. So he played the audio of the actual video. And here it is.
Okay, so again, I'll play. This is the 17-second audio. Ready?
Put it in your mouth. I'm taking a video.
Oh, we're taking a picture.
Does he sound so awkward? Doesn't Patrick sound so awkward? Like, oh, I really don't want you to film me eating. Oh, but I'll try to be nice and get along He sounds in fear. Sounds like the beginning of this sounds like a hostage video. Did anyone else hear that? Oh, okay, Karen. Sure, film me while I'm eating for no reason at all.
You're gonna eat that whole plate, right?
Probably.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to play along, Karen. You like me now, Karen? What do you guys think of that? When are you going to put the if I play along, will you put the camera down? It's just like the way she goes into people's Facebooks profiles and pulls out their it pulls out their picture and puts together concocted stories. Who knows? You sense he's nervous. What is that nervous? What are you going to do with this one, Karen? Wild. And of course, they're going after also, I may deal with this, I don't know, should I deal with this a little later? Maybe I'll save some of the other motions for later. But I do want to get into the ARCA motion. That I do want to deal with today. So the Commonwealth, this was curious. The Commonwealth wants to exclude the ARCA experts. So here's the Innocence Fraud Watch was good enough to put the whole motion up on her blog. Commonwealth's motion to exclude employees of ARCA, LLC. The Commonwealth moves to exclude the defendant from calling employees of ARCA. So they were the experts who were asked to whether John's head wounds could come from a car accident. So when you hear Karen Reed's defenders saying, oh, well, they say he couldn't possibly hit, all his injuries couldn't come from a car accident. No, they were specifically asking about head wounds, which this Commonwealth, it's not their theory that the head wounds came directly from Karen Reed hitting him with a car. So, the answers that you get have to do a lot with the questions, and they knew that if they asked the question that way, they could maybe get an answer. Due to the defendant's failure and inability, so this is why Hank Brennan wants them out, due to the defendant's failure and inability to comply with discovery obligations under Mass R Criminal Code P14, as revealed during the defendant's first trial, Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler were two experts retained by the federal government in furtherance of the U.S. Attorney's investigation of an unspecified federal crime. Both Wolf, unspecified. Just find out all the witnesses who have the goods on me. Just find out if they're doing something criminal. Go into their phones. Go into their private life. Why am I the only one who has to turn over my phone? And why is my life up for dissection and not Jennifer McCabe's, et cetera, and Brian Higgins and Proctor? All the people who have the goods on me. Both Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler admittedly did not review all pertinent and relevant evidence that exists in this case, asserted that they did not speak with the defense prior to their testimonies, and conducted experimentation and analysis that exceeded the facts and evidence in this case. Nonetheless, the court permitted both Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler to testify on behalf of the defendant. In June 2024, the perimeters of the experts' opinions were not provided by the defendant. So what were they looking for? First trial and portions of the expert opinions were not expected nor properly noticed. Furthermore, during the first trial, Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler testified to reviewing information that was not known prior to rendering their opinions, and this was not previously disclosed to the Commonwealth. So what that means is they testified to reviewing information that was not known prior to rendering their opinions. So they had some bias. They were given more information. Prior to and during the defendant's first trial, the Commonwealth repeatedly moved for reciprocal discovery from the defendant, citing a restraint and inability to comply with Massachusetts 14. The defendant failed to provide the Commonwealth with any discovery from ARCA. So they didn't hand over the discovery. Karen Reed didn't want to hand over the discovery from ARCA. On January 6, 2025, the Commonwealth notified the court. So Hank Brennan was screaming in the court, like, hand over everything. Why am I handing over everything? Even loonies who send me their whacked out theories of Karen Reed over to the defense. Anything that I get regarding to this case, I hand over to the defense. And why won't they hand over their expert opinions? We've handed over all of ours. And the defendant and its intention to exclude Archer based on the defendant's repeated failure and inability to comply. On February 6, Attorney Jackson indicated to the Commonwealth and this court that he tends to call experts from ARCA, presumably Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler at the defendant's upcoming trial. So this is just all their frustration with trying to get documents. This is particularly interesting part. As the proponent of the evidence, the defendant bears the full obligation of Rule 14. So that's mutual discovery, meaning they both have to hand over their experts' opinions, anything that they're going to use at trial, any evidence. Provides for an automatic exchange of discovery regarding intended expert opinions on evidence. The defendant cannot shield herself from discovery obligations by citing restraints by the U.S. Attorney's Office, or by now perhaps claiming to have independently retained ARCA for additional analysis. So ARCA was attained by the feds and they're no longer connected with the feds. So for additional analysis and producing only a limited portion. The Commonwealth remains unduly prejudiced by the defendant's delays, meaning this is unfair to our case. These delays are hurting our case. They have to know that. In providing appropriate discovery and notice to the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth has diligently sought expert discovery from the defendant and the U.S. Attorney's Office for approximately 10 months. A second voir dire is not appropriately an appropriate remedy, as the defendant has continued to sidestep their discovery obligations. So what are they hiding? What do you guys think? What do you think they're hiding? Curious, no? I'm going to take a quick break. When I get back from a break, we're going to be talking about Alan Jackson and pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie. First, Karen says, I think I know exactly what she does and has always been a selfish person her entire life. No mental illness. I agree. Just born evil. Absolutely. Right on the money, Tammie. Thanks so much. All right. I'll be right back from a 1 minute break. When we get back from the break, we're going to be talking about Alan Jackson. Don't go anywhere.
We're not taking a break. a glass of wine. Roberta will be back in no time. This podcast is listener supported, so smash that like button and subscribe, or become a patron for exclusive content if you are so inclined. Have something to say? Shoot Roberta a super chat. She will do her best to read it all air without delay. Now Roberta's back and ready to put the true back in true crime. Here's Roberta.
Okay, Alan Jackson, let's go. So one of the things, this is a video, I believe, from around 2010-ish. That's when Alan Jackson, you can find it at DA Alan Jackson, his YouTube, when he was really active on YouTube, because he was running for DA of Los Angeles. So he's putting up all his clips. Sally Jensen, Kylie, thanks for becoming a channel member. So this is Alan Jackson's clip, and thank you, Meister, for taking out the
basically covered Trudy.
It had a lot of like odd music running through it.
He was backing the van out of the driveway. The other gunman covered Mickey. Ultimately, shots were fired inside the van. Mickey was shot several times, but he wasn't killed. She crashed the rear of the van.
So just to, I'm kind of bearing the lead here, but he's going over cases that he prosecuted and describing the details of the cases. But when he prosecuted Phil Spector, it ended up in a mistrial. I believe it was a hung jury.
And into this block wall behind me, Mickey Thompson screamed to the top of his lungs, "Please don't hurt my wife," pleading essentially for Trudy's life. The gunman stood over Trudy, fired a bullet into the back of her head. Well, he shot and killed her here, right about where I'm standing. That first gunman walked up the driveway. Mickey had been bleeding at the gunman. I put a gun to the right of his head. He subsequently was shot and killed after Trudy was murdered. This was a brutal execution-style double homicide.
Finally, after 5 years locked up without bail, Michael Goodwin would go to trial in Pasadena, California. His future in the hands of a young prosecutor who wasn't even in college yet when Mickey and Trudy Thompson were murdered. How do you feel going into this?
A little bit of pressure.
I'd say a lot of pressure.
Okay, a lot of pressure.
So he's trying a cold case here, 2010. Curious. He was, there he is walking into the court. You see them filming this? Okay, Mr. Jackson, can you walk through the courthouse doors one more time? The courtroom doors? One more time. Come on in. Should I bring my folders? Yeah, bring your folders.
A little bit of pressure.
I'd say a lot of pressure.
Okay, a lot of pressure.
Alan Jackson would make the case that the very nature of this murder was a giveaway, the roadmap that inevitably led to Michael Goodwin.
This was an incredibly well-orchestrated, well-conducted execution-style murder. This was about pride. This was about ego. This was about winning and losing.
Who does that sound like? Who does that sound like? This is about ego. This is about pride. This is about winning and losing. The goal was to teach John a lesson at a minimum. That's Karen Reed talking about the crime.
Mike Goodwin saw paying a nickel to Mickey Thompson as a loss, and he'd be seen as a loser the rest of his life. There's no way not to worry. I mean, I'd be lying if...
Yeah, I didn't want to be a loser prosecutor making a couple $100,000 a year when I could make millions representing guilty clients and getting them off. Especially tormenting SA victims and making them hand over their phone and getting and embarrassing them and haranguing people who just had the misfortune of being witnesses in a case on the stand. That's what I really wanted to do as a defense attorney. Realized I could, and then I could even maybe get like really cozy with one of my clients, one of my killer clients. Because, you know, I'm looking for my psychopathic soulmate. Karen Reed. Those two, I mean, they just like inseparable. It's like the Bobbsey twins. Really believe they're psychopathic soulmates.
I said I wasn't
Alan Jackson
a little bit
Karen
on pins
Reed.
and needles, but I'm real superstitious.
Even prosecutor Alan Jackson knows why his case is a tough.
Alan Jackson, can we do some things in your office? Could we maybe have you like looking over some transcripts and making notes? Okay. Yeah. Can I? It's so cringe, isn't it?
One to sell.
There is no single smoking gun in this case.
But you have no direct physical evidence, do you, linking Mike Goodwin to these murders?
Physical evidence at the crime scene?
Right.
No.
What was your reaction when the jury read its verdict?
Relieved.
Unlike Karen Reed, where we have John O'Keefe's DNA on her tail light, Karen Reed's tail light all over the crime scene, Karen Reed putting herself at the crime scene, Karen Reed admitting to multiple people that she did it. Quite a different case, right?
I was relieved. Trudy Thompson was executed. How? One shot through the head. 30 or so seconds later. How? One more shot through the head. Before he had time to come up with something, he told Adriana D'Souza exactly what happened with that pop inside the house. And what were his words? I think I killed somebody. Does that look like what you're looking at in the... Does that look like what you're looking at?
What were her words? It's all my fault. I did it. I hit him. 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 Could I have hit him?
In the photograph, Dr. Biden? For your honor, excuse me.
I know he's asking if the demonstration resembles what's in the photograph.
But now that you know the real
It's looking like he's really enjoying that.
Phil Spector, now that you know who he is and what he is and what he does, what would you say? Even if you had to whisper it so he couldn't hear. All of you, all 17 of you are thinking the same thing. You'd lean over and you'd whisper, "Don't know."
Isn't that so similar to how I feel about John O'Keefe? Don't you feel like if you could go back in time, you'd whisper, don't go out to the bar, stay in, never see Karen Reed ever again, stay away from that crazy psycho Karen Reed, throw her stuff on the street, return it to her, and never see her again, and never let the kids see her? Don't go, John O'Keefe, don't go. So effective. This is the part of that's always quoted about this trial, which is strangely more mentioned more frequently than the second trial where there was a conviction. Is this trial where there was a hung jury? This is the part that everyone talks about. You'd whisper, don't go.
Don't go. At the bottom of the driveway. And remember, Allison said Trudy Thompson was down on her knees, looking up at the gunman with her hands outstretched. Please.
Jennifer Ray's outdone me. I'd whisper, keep that psychopath on Facebook blocked. Don't get rid of your Facebook profile. Don't answer any calls from a Karen Reed. Keep that weird Fall River accent. balloon knotted psycho out of your life.
Pleading for her life. As Mickey stand at the top of the driveway and watch in horror as his wife lay crumpled in the gutter, for God's sake. That gunman walked up, pointed a gun at his head, and ended his life. You folks are empowered with the ultimate responsibility. The ultimate responsibility, whether you like it or not. The responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, to seek justice for those who cannot seek justice for themselves, to protect those who cannot protect themselves.
And now my job is to get psychopathic killers off. Have them escape justice. Re-victimize the victim's family. Make sure the victim's family gets no justice at all. That's now my job. You know, it's just really strange having on defense attorneys because, you know, David McKenzie I had on talking about Karen Reed and talking about bad judges' rulings and a bunch of stuff. I thought it was a pretty compelling episode. Check it out. It's called Defending Your Case in Court, not the Court of Public Opinion. But when he texted me and we were just like arranging the episode, he wrote me and said, oh, you know, just wanted to let me know that he represented this kid in Oklahoma. Hold on one second. Colin Griffith. And I said, oh, did he stab you? Because he's alleged to have killed his father and was then acquitted of killing his mother. First he shot his father. That's what's alleged to have happened. Then he stabbed to death his mother. And so I wrote down, is he going to stab you to death? I just don't understand how these defense attorneys do what they do. I get that it's a very necessary job. It's just so opposite everything. I don't know how they do it. And just to say I think what John Lewin says, he says, if I wanted to say things, he's quoted as saying, he's a prosecutor, if I wanted to say things I didn't mean, I'd be a defense attorney. I mean, how do they just make up these fantastical things and try to sell them to a jury and succeed often? She fell on the knife. That's how that mother and father killing psycho got off in Florida. She fell on the knife.
You have that.
He didn't represent him in that case. He was representing for the father, which they didn't even try him for.
That responsibility. Lana Clarkson is one of those people. Lana Clarkson can't seek justice for herself. That was seen to by Philip Spector.
So these are all the shots of him doing important work, and he put it up on just for his district attorney, major crimes division. He was running for the big DA job, not the deputy DA job. He was a deputy DA. So, but even more fun to watch is to watch him in the Phil Spector trial. This is his closing argument by request. Had a request to play this video again.
So that wasn't going to work. They couldn't show that she had suicidal ideation. They couldn't show that she had prior suicide attempts. They couldn't show that she had been diagnosed with major depressive disorder. They couldn't show any of that stuff about Lana. All they could show is that she was a normal human being. So what do? They turned to Jennifer Hayes and pumpkin pie.
You know, what did you guys think of the Karen Reed trial where everyone said they liked Karen right away? I don't think there was one person on the stand who said that they didn't like her when meeting her. Were they afraid of the Free Karen Reed mob to say they didn't care for her? Or they liked her at first and then they didn't like her so much? Or did she have that such a effective mask that she wears? Curious what you think.
Y'all have been waiting for me to talk about that, hadn't you? Jennifer Hayes and pumpkin pie. What did Jennifer Hayes say? Jennifer Hayes said, Lana Clarkson and me and pumpkin pie were the Three Musketeers. Inseparable.
So what the defense's theory was, so this is about Lana Clarkson, who was killed in Phil Spector's home by a shotgun to the mouth. And it's really hard to imagine an actress killing themselves in such a way where her teeth were all over the floor, right in her mouth, publicly in a stranger's home. But that was the defense. Whereas the stories of Phil Spector threatening women with a gun and threatening people with a gun, the Ramones, John Lennon, was a music producer. He died in prison. So the two women came to testify for the defense saying that Lana Clarkson wanted to end it all at time and was very down in the dumps. So these are the two, pumpkin pie, and the other woman who I just named just escaped
sisters. We were each other's confidants. We were each other's go-to gals. We were inseparable. We were connected at the hip. We were the Three Musketeers, according to Jennifer Hayes. I loved Lana. I knew everything about Lana, and I knew the real Lana, which is real convenient, by the way. Oh, all you people, everybody else, all the evidence that says that she was a happy person, oh, that was just the game face Lana. I knew the real Lana. I got down into the dirt with her. I knew.
Yeah, just like I get down in the dirt with Karen Reed. I know the real Karen Reed. The one that plots and goes through people's Facebook and pulls out the dirt. You guys all know, free Karen Readers, you know the public Karen Reed. I know the real Karen Reed.
The real Lana Clarkson. Really? Did you? One of the first things you said on cross-examination, actually it was direct examination, I think it was a faux pas, I think she wished she could have taken it back. She said, I'm Pie's memory. I, Jennifer Hayes, am Pie's memory. Pie has such a poor memory. Pumpkin Pie can't remember her name if I don't give it to her. She has such a poor memory that I'm actually her memory. What else do we know? We know that Tawny Tyndall, as she is wont to do, interviewed her. But amazingly, there's no recording of that interview. And she interviewed her with another person. She interviewed Jennifer Hayes right alongside another person. Who could that person be? Oh yeah, Pumpkin Pie. The three of them sat and chatted together, and what do you think they did? Do you think Pumpkin Pie might have helped Jennifer Hayes a little bit get her story straight? We're going to get to Pumpkin Pie in a second, and her motivations in this trial in just a second. But do you think that they're...
We're going to handle pumpkin pie. We're going to handle pumpkin pie, apple pie. We're going to handle the whole dessert menu in a second. It's getting real folksy with the jury. We're going to handle pumpkin pie in a second. What is this weird accent he's putting on? Anyone else notice it? What is this? It's getting some folksy charm, folksy southern charm. Pumpkin pie. For the jury, real folksy. Her memory has been sort of like, it's kind of like Patrick, right? It's kind of like the same argument.
Testimony sounded just alike enough that it's suggestive that they might have gotten their story straight. One thing's for sure, you folks will never know. You'll never know. Because Tawny Tyndall and the defense made sure that those conversations were never recorded. So you'll never know. You have to ask yourself, whose testimony were you listening to?
Isn't that just so similar to Patrick, right? The prosecution made him change his story. So, okay. Because now Karen Reed has proof. I mean, why would you make up that? You got mad at me because she thought I was eating my food too slowly and I wasn't appreciative or wasn't enjoying it. I mean, if you're really going to make up something, why don't you make up something, some mommy dearest stuff? Why are you making up? Why would Patrick make up something so benign as she got mad at me over the food? I mean, if you're making stuff up, go hog wild. Right? Go full mommy dearest.
Don't f with me, fellas! This ain't my first time at the rodeo. Don't f with me, fellas! I know how to win.
She knows how to win the hard way. Thank you, Joan.
When Jennifer Hayes testified, was it hers? Was it pumpkin pies? Roger Rosen even talked to Jennifer Hayes at one point. That wasn't recorded either. Whose testimony were you really listening to? And then we find out that Jennifer Hayes knows about the cottage. This is the inseparable sister, the person that is closer to her than anybody else. They trade confidences and intimacies. They talk constantly. They know each other's good moods, bad moods. I know the good moods, bad moods, and I, Jennifer Hayes, know the real Lana Clarkson. Really, how long has she lived in the cottage? Oh, as long as I've known her. Absolutely, I've known her 8-9 years. She's lived there the whole time. Oops. Guess she didn't get that one straight during her conversation with Pumpkin Pie. Lana Clarkson.
Right. Jennifer Hayes and Pumpkin Pie were conspirators. Co-conspirators.
Lived in the cottage for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. Jennifer Hayes doesn't even know where Lana Clarkson lived. I'm not saying they didn't know each other. I'm saying you have to question whether or not they knew each other in the way that Jennifer Hayes said they knew each other.
Really? Are you getting some attention-seeking people inserting themselves in a high-profile trial? Not unlike, say, Marie Russell, the former emergency room doctor, now turned bite and hold police dog expert, now turned dog bite expert. And I'll get to that. They're trying to get the dog bite. I'm going to save that for another day. But one curious thing also, just quickly, about the ARCA documents is that they moved to impound, and Beverly Cannone approved this so that they excluded exhibits A and B we can't see in their motion. So what's in that motion? I'm so curious to learn from the prosecution that we can't see. Guess we're going to wait and see it at trial. Stuff we haven't seen yet. I hear the car data is back. I'm really curious to see that in the Karen Reed case. I don't know about you guys.
Keep in mind, she's got no corroboration whatsoever about their relationship, except one person. Pumpkin Pie. Interestingly enough, you'll have available to you, and I don't suggest you do this, it takes a long time. Actually, I suggest you do it. What the heck? You got nothing but time anyway, right? We presented you with phone records.
Did they just call that a defense of desperation? Defense of desperation? What does that sound like? Defense of desperation. They were going to, my theory is that they were going to try to say that Lucky Loughran, the plow driver, hit him until they got him on their side and said, oh, you didn't see anything. You saw this, you saw that. I mean, that guy's story he was thoroughly debunked on the stand. That cross was just, he was demolished on cross. So the defense of desperation have attention-seeking people insert themselves in a high-profile trial that will say basically anything that the defense wants them to say. Sound familiar, guys? Sound familiar?
Presented you with phone records, cell phone records from Lana Clarkson, cell phone records from Jennifer Hayes. Not one phone call in the last 3 months of Lana Clarkson's life. Not one call received, not one call made. Well, you know what? We're in an email society. They don't talk on the phone. They get together all the time and share their intimacies in email. We know what a prolific emailer Lana Clarkson was, right? So it must have been email. We'll give Jennifer a break. Oops. Not one email. Not one email in evidence that you have between Lana Clarkson and Jennifer Hayes. Whose testimony were you really listening to? Hers or Pumpkin Pie's? And then we have Pumpkin Pie, who without question has chased the limelight from the day Lana Clarkson died. With the memorials that she went to, having her own memorial at some club that she was promoting. She was so devastated, by the way, that she got up that next Tuesday. Lana Clarkson lost her life on Monday. She got up on Tuesday and promoted another club. Oh, I had to be dragged out of bed, and I was dragged out of, the grocery store, and I collapsed, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, please. She was promoting a club the next day. I'm not saying that she wasn't hurt by Lana's death. I'm not being insensitive to her hurt. I'm saying, can you really believe this sob story that Pumpkin Pie was trying to sell you? Let's think about this. You have to test the character and quality of her testimony on this witness stand. Because, folks, the reality is, if it didn't come through that microphone, or it's not presented to you physically, it ain't in evidence. All right?
This ultimately failed. Jurors hung on this. So some people believe Pumpkin Pie. Some people believe Pumpkin Pie. It's a ridiculous defense.
What comes through that microphone is evidence. So you can test how Pumpkin Pie acted and reacted. You can test the character and quality of her testimony just by how she acted on the stand. How was she dressed? Did she come dressed appropriately? Or did she look like she was looking for attention? Everybody thought about that. Of course, the defense got her cleaned up the next time she was called to the stand. Or somebody got her cleaned up the next time she was called to the stand. Did she really look like someone who had just lost her best friend and is in the trial of her best friend's death as she tries to give over the truth about her friend? Or did she look like she was trying to draw attention to herself, just with her appearance, before she even started talking? And I don't think I'm putting too fine a point on it.
Yeah, I'm noticing his hairline. Who's talking about his hairline in here? That looks sprayed on. Who said that? Forensic RN says, anyone else notice his receding hairline? Looks brown sprayed in here. Yeah, how come he has the same hairline he had before 2010 that he has in 2025? Does he have implants? What is going on? Is it a wig? What's going on?
When I say, in trying to determine whether or not she seeks attention for herself, is she the type? Is she an attention seeker? She named herself Pumpkin Pie. I mean, it's not like she went home.
Right. I mean, she could have called herself Chocolate Cake. She could have called herself Creme Brulee. She called herself Pumpkin Pie after a Thanksgiving dessert. And you're supposed to believe this Thanksgiving dessert, that attention-seeking Thanksgiving dessert that waltzed in here and sold you a bill of goods?
to her mom and said, you know what, I don't like Irene and I don't like Elizabeth and Laughlin. It's not really working for me, so I'm going to change to Susie or Joanne or Michelle. No, she said, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to change my name to a Thanksgiving Day dessert. Pumpkin pie. Someone who's, and look, she can change her name to anything she wants to. I don't care. I don't care about that. All I'm saying is you have to ask yourself, is this part and parcel of her?
Would you trust a woman named Pumpkin Pie? I'm not going after her name, except I'm going after her name. That's exactly what I'm doing, saying don't trust anyone named Pumpkin Pie. Advice from Alan Jackson. Never trust a woman named Pumpkin Pie.
Attempt to draw attention to herself. That's what she craves. The attention on herself. She used law.
Kind of a little bit like Karen Reed. She craves the attention on herself. Victim who? Children who? Unfortunate witnesses and in my murder? Who? Go after him, get him, grab the pitchforks, grab the torches. Get him, get him, get him. That's the spirit of Free Karen Reed.
Clarkson in life to do that. Tall, gorgeous, beautiful blonde. And she's using Lana Clarkson in death to do that, to draw attention to herself. When we approach sidebar, again, you test the character and quality of everybody's testimony and you watch their demeanor. That's why they testify live in front of you, so you can watch their demeanor. What was Pumpkin Pie doing? We approached sidebar at one point, and Judge Fiddler and Mr. Rosen and myself and Mr. Dixon were all having a discussion at sidebar, and I glance over, and Pumpkin Pie has brought friends, a little entourage, who are sitting in the back of the court, and she's literally smiling and waving from the witness stand. In the murder trial of her best friend, smiling and waving.
And then she got up and she started taking selfies with her friends and onlookers. What kind of circus was this? Everybody in the Karen Reed case just looked like they wanted to be anywhere else, and I don't blame them. Except maybe Marie Russell. Marie Russell. Prosecution witnesses were like, get me out of here. Oh, can I go? You're free to go. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Waving at the audience, drawing attention to herself. And then you have the book deal. Didn't come out on direct examination, but on cross-examination, she admitted, oh yeah, there's something going on, there's a treatment there, and blah, blah, blah. Well, who would buy a book about pumpkin pie? I mean, really, if it wasn't for this case, who would buy a book about pumpkin pie? Is that something that you think in your...
What would she call her book? A slice of a pumpkin pie, a slice of my life. Is that what she'd call her book? Pumpkin pie. A sweet life.
Smart folks.
I mean, if Karen Reed gets off, and even if she doesn't get off, I'm predicting books, more document. She'll never ever get out of the public eye. She will never stop profiting off of this murder, off of her murder. That's my prediction.
The publishers would try to publish a book about a LA club promoter that does clubs here and there in LA. I don't know. Maybe it'd be a #1 bestseller. I don't know. I don't think so. However, you change that a little bit. You tweak that a little bit, and all of a sudden, Pumpkin Pie becomes the star witness for the defense in the Phil Spector murder trial. Maybe that might sell a book or two.
I'm so curious. The witnesses in the Nexium case, in the Ghislaine Maxwell case and in the Larry Ray case, they had an FBI, a woman who would escort the female victims, witnesses, to and from the stand. And I was curious if any of the witnesses who were victims of harassment were given any kind of escort to and from the courthouse. Does anyone know? So they would sit with them. And in the Larry Ray case, we would hear one victim witness just weep. They have a little room that they sit in between testimony. It's like, I think I still have post-traumatic stress from that trial.
Chasing the limelight. That's pumpkin pie. And then, of course, we've already talked about whether or not Jennifer Hayes actually testified as Jennifer Hayes, or if there was some puppetry going on, and literally Jennifer Hayes had been given information by Pumpkin Pie, say this, don't say this, say that, which none of which, by the way, is borne out by the evidence. No phone calls, no emails. She was asked a question she probably wasn't expecting. How long has Lana lived in the cottage? Oh, the whole time I've known her, 8 years, 9 years. You know, hoping for the best. Oops. And then, as a Hail Mary, there were a couple of Hail Marys in here. When Pumpkin Pie was brought back to the stand, she said, oh yeah, and by the way, just in case you were wondering, by the way, Lana always has her purse on her shoulder. Why did that come up? Why would that come up? Because the defense knows good and well that one thing they can't get by, one thing they can't get over, one thing that will never, ever make any sense is that Lana Clarkson killed herself while she had her purse on her shoulder. Is having her purse on her shoulder more consistent with committing suicide, or is it more consistent with saying, hell, I'm ready to leave, I'm ready to go home? They can't get past that. They cannot ever get past that because it makes no sense, and they know it. So what do? Here's the Hail Mary. You know,
right, is getting clipped by Karen Reed's SUV. I mean, you think she could ignore her infotainment system blaring at her? You're going to hit something, flashing and blaring a siren as she somehow jerks the wheel. She's aiming at something. You don't do that by mistake. Please, if anybody who thinks that this was an accident and Karen Reed didn't know what she's doing, you want to have a discussion, get in touch with me. My email address is always in the About section of my YouTube channel. I don't get it.
What? Pumpkin Pie's like Mikey. Remember those Life commercials, the Life cereal commercials? Mikey? Give it to Pumpkin Pie. She'll say anything. Remember Mikey? He'll eat anything. You know what? We're screwed on this purse issue. We can't get by that. The purse is the purse is the purse. It's on her shoulder. How do we explain that? Oh, well, I got an idea. Just give it to Pie. She'll say anything. Have hers testify that Lana constantly had her purse on her shoulder. Every single time she saw her purse was on her shoulder. So Pumpkin Pie comes to court and she says exactly that. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. Lana always had her purse on her shoulder. And she's out of here. Really. Except for all those photographs that they forgot that they introduced at the parties and at the beach and in Hawaii and in Jamaica and at such and such table and at the Jeff Franklin party. And guess what? Guess what's missing? Oh yeah, didn't think about that, did you? Not one photograph has her with her purse in it. Not one photograph has Lana with her purse in it. They didn't think about that. We know that there is at least one person in this trial who admitted.
Phil Spector's original attorney was Leslie Abramson. Just a little piece of true crime trivia. But there's one of his many, many wigs, Phil Spector.
Lying. An admitted liar. And that's Pumpkin Pie. She said, yep, I lied. It's got an excuse for it now.
Isn't that right? Taterbug says he doesn't sound like a DA, sounds like a slimy defense attorney. Yeah, and his bid for DA failed. But it's very much the way that he defends is just totally destroy the character of the testimony that they think is the most valuable. just destroy their character. Remember when he said, I did what I needed to do, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, with Jennifer McCabe. And these motions are just like written directly to the Free Karen readers. And they use the hearings the same way. It looks like Alan Jackson and David Unetti have been laying back, letting the pro bono and attention-seeking lawyers that have come on this case do all the work for them. Begging for extra time, pushing back dates. Now they want to push back the whole trial date. Did you guys hear that? April 1st? Let's get on with it. They don't have enough time to do this. They don't have enough time to do that. All the while, they won't hand over the discovery. Strangely, we had the same problem first time round with Adam Lally. Couldn't get the opinions of the witnesses, the defense witnesses. No report. We had to have a voir dire type thing, situation of, a whole hearing. Voir dire, a whole hearing. Of Marie Russell. So there's no report. And now we've basically had Robert Alessi write the witnesses' reports, in my opinion. I can't prove that. That's just my hunch. Their opinions have wildly changed in style and substance since last time round. Certainly Marie Russell's got a whole bunch of new stories. Oh yeah, there were so many times in the emergency room when someone came in and because of language barriers, no one in the entire hospital spoke Spanish or another language, that I'd have to just intuit and use my skills of powers of deduction to deduce that it was a dog bite. Really? That happened so many times. Marie Russell. Ridiculous. I mean, these are just things I think Robert Alessi thought up. The former pharmacist, now turned attorney.
Oh yeah, I lied to Detective Tomlin. I didn't tell him the whole truth. Well, let's see about that. Her first statement to Detective Tomlin, as you recall, was Lana was not suicidal. Lana was never depressed. The only time she was depressed, Lana Clarkson, was when she actually broke her wrists a year ago. And I put my hands behind my back just almost unconsciously because that's how Lana fell. She slipped on a rug and braced herself and snapped her wrists. 21 fractures, 3 surgeries, pins, halos, literally pins drilled into her skin, through her skin, into her bone. Was she depressed then? According to Pumpkin Pie, yeah, she was a little depressed then. Well, my God, who wouldn't be? Who among us wouldn't be? You're not going to get up and click your heels and sing a happy tune the next day after you have spiral fractures in both your wrists. Of course she was a little depressed. Detective Tomlin, was she depressed on February 3rd? Is she depressed now? And remember, this statement came just hours after Lana was shot to death by Phil Spector. No, she's not depressed, and she's definitely not suicidal. Then Pumpkin Pie, chasing that limelight, decides she wants to talk to Star Magazine. She had a pathetic excuse about what happened, but basically it went like this. The family decided they were going to have some dignity about this case. They had suffered enough. They had suffered the loss of their daughter, their sister. They had suffered enough. This case was not going to be tried in the press.
Have we suffered enough? Have we suffered enough? Are you ready to move on? Do you guys want to see the end of this, or should we move on? I'm kind of feeling like we should move on. I'll wait a second. I'll wait till you guys catch up with me. But I've had enough of Alan Jackson. So Anna says he's annoying. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. It's a lot, right? It is a lot. Okay, before I go, have your comments. Shall we just get into it? No song today. Stephen Price, 6957, says, great work, Roberta. She must be believing her own lies, and she says them so much. I say there's no way she gets acquitted. Not possible. Really? Because this is the way I feel she's winning. That's my feel. I hope that they find an unbiased jury, but Massachusetts, that state, the whole state is wrapped up in this trial. 12-0 people will never say, oh, I say there's no way she gets acquitted. Not possible. 12-0 people will never say not guilty. I say they might have a hung jury. This is going to be close. Last time 9-3, that's with Lally. No offense, but he's no Hank Brennan. Yes, the only problem is weeding them out, meaning weeding out the potential juries of the jury pools, weeding out the weed whacker jury pool, the weed whackers jury pool. So hopefully we get 12-0. If she does get convicted, there's no snowflakes chance in hell they will overturn her conviction. I've seen a lot of iron tight convictions get overturned in all sorts of unusual way. Alfred, please. Just loopholes, small things, and go through this mess again. Fingers crossed. I hope you're right, Stephen Price. The feeling is she's always one step ahead, and what it's a distraction defense. Point elsewhere. How come? What if? Why is the Sallyport video mirrored? So you don't really look at all the mountains of evidence implicating Karen Read. Just look elsewhere. How come Jennifer McCabe has deleted text searches? Well, she doesn't. Deleted searches, internet searches, excuse me. Well, she doesn't. Well, how come? How come this? What was Higgins doing in the police moving cars and talking on the phone? Who is he talking to that night after being at 34 Fairview? Watching the whack job says, where are Karen Read's friends, girlfriends? The one she must have had before the murder. Like all women her age usually do, usually a whole bunch of them, many of them going back decades. Where are they? Where are her ex-boyfriends is what I'd like to know. Why aren't they coming forward? Saying she couldn't have done this and she was a wonderful person. Because they're all afraid of Karen Read. This is where her aggressive behavior works in her advantage. Everyone's scared into silence. Why are all Karen Read's inner circle just a bunch of skeezy YouTube grifters? Great point. Karen Read doesn't have friends. She has hosts. Great point. Certainly not my friend. Stephen Shem, 2584, says, no matter what happens, her life will never be the same in a negative way. Dating combined with alcohol will be her downfall. She can't stop either one. Her life will never be the same in a negative way. I say that, but look at Amanda Knox. Look at these. She's married and as a child. These psychopaths are very cunning and calculating. And that's all I can say. I hope you guys are right. But there is no really strong voice for John O'Keefe. It's just all radio silence and a huge clamor for Karen Read, a huge army for Karen Read, because everyone wants to get into it because there's so much money and opportunities. So that's what I have for today. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, support the channel, send me a donation by Venmo, buy me a coffee, become a Patreon member, and I'll be back I'm off tomorrow, but I'll be back Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for listening.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet.